All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're going to explore how a single scholar fundamentally laid the groundwork for, well, pretty much everything, from basic arithmetic all the way up to modern artificial intelligence. To really wrap our heads around this, we actually need to travel back to the 9th century, right into the heart of the Islamic Golden Age in Baghdad. It was this incredible time of immense intellectual curiosity, but get this, the mathematical tools of the era were surprisingly holding people back. I mean, we use numbers every single day, right? We completely take for granted this elegant, frictionless system that makes our modern world tick, but it absolutely was not always this way. Seriously, just imagine trying to solve a really difficult calculation without the numbers we use today. Picture doing your taxes with no 0, no 1, no 2, and absolutely no concept of place value. Before our current system, you were essentially stuck with Roman numerals. And the fundamental flaw with Roman numerals is that they're additive and subtractive. They're not positional. You just kind of keep stacking letters together. Doing simple arithmetic with those long, confusing chains of letters, it could take hours of tedious scratchpad work. Advanced mathematics was nearly impossible. Honestly, you were essentially working with glorified tally marks.
When you actually compare a basic Roman numeral calculation next to a Hindu Arabic one, it's wild how obvious the problem becomes. The old system was just intensely clunky. It takes up a huge amount of physical space, requires immense mental gymnastics just to keep track of the letters, and is super prone to errors. But the decimal system, it's sleek, it's highly efficient, and you can read it almost instantly. The contrast is literally night and day. One system fights against you, and the other does half the organizational work for you.
Section 1. Al-Khwarizmi's Great Breakthrough, Discovering a Better Way.
So back in the 9th century, a scholar named Muhammad ibn Musa al-Khwarizmi was working at the legendary House of Wisdom in Baghdad. Think of this place like a massive, ancient think tank that was gathering texts from all over the known world. While he was studying there, he came across the Hindu numeral system that had developed in India, and he immediately realized its extraordinary potential. Now, to be clear, and this is a really important distinction, Al-Khwarizmi didn't actually invent the numbers themselves. His true genius was acting as a popularizer. He recognized their unparalleled power, and crucially, he absolutely refused to keep that knowledge hidden. Instead of treating this highly efficient system as some closely guarded secret for the academic elite, he wrote a groundbreaking book. He took it upon himself to explain exactly how these numbers worked so that everyday people could use them.
Section 2. Deconstructing Place Value, the Mechanics of the Magic.
Okay, so the crucial point here is understanding exactly why this decimal place value system was such an absolute game changer. It wasn't just about drawing cool new symbols. It was about how those symbols interacted with each other based entirely on where they sat. Take the number 555, for example. In this decimal system, the position of a digit dictates its actual value. So this elegantly represents 5 hundreds, 5 tens, and 5 ones. It seems super basic to us now, but contrast that with a Roman numeral like x, which always equals 10, no matter where it is. In the system Al-Khwarizmi championed, you didn't need to invent a brand new symbol for 50 and another one for 500. You just reused the number 5 in a new column. That simple, beautiful idea made calculations dramatically faster.
Section 3. The Superpower of Zero, the Ultimate Placeholder. You know, another completely revolutionary idea that he helped popularize was the concept of zero. Because before zero became widely accepted, the math world had a massive structural problem. Think about it. How would you distinguish between 15, 105, or 1005 if you didn't have a placeholder to hold those empty columns? For a long time, ancient mathematicians really struggled with zero. It was this intense philosophical hurdle, like how do you even write down a symbol for nothing? But without zero to give firm structure to the entire system, writing and reading large numbers was a nightmare. Zero changed everything. By acting as both a number and a necessary blank space, it made the whole shebang function flawlessly.
Now, to spread this knowledge, Al-Khwarizmi didn't just talk about high-level abstract theory. He made it incredibly practical. He carefully documented really clear, step-by-step procedures for all the major mathematical operations. He started with the basics, addition and subtraction, then moved on to multiplication and division, and pushed all the way through to fractions and square roots. By defining these methodical steps, he basically upgraded the intellectual toolkit of an entire society. Actually, his methods were so rigorously logical that another one of his famous texts, Aljar, literally gave us the modern word and concept of algebra. His manual meant that merchants, astronomers, and engineers could calculate with remarkable speed just by following his logic.
The timeline of how this idea spread like wildfire is absolutely fascinating. It starts in the 9th century with his book release during the Islamic Golden Age. Centuries later, his texts were translated into Latin and made their way into Europe. Over there, figures like the Italian mathematician Fibonacci helped champion these new numerals. But truthfully, It was really the merchants and traders who adopted them first, simply because they were incredibly efficient for day-to-day commerce. Over time, Europe completely ditched Roman numerals for scientific and commercial work, and that historical momentum brings us right to today, where the numbers 0 through 9 are the global standard.
Section 4. From Algorithmy to Algorithms, the Modern Payoff.
But wait, his influence goes way, way further than just counting. This is where we hit a massive plot twist in the history of tech. Every digital calculation happening today traces its roots directly back to the step-by-step methods he popularized. In fact, his legacy is so profound that the Latinized version of his name, Al-Khwarizmi, eventually morphed into the word we use to describe the instructions that run our entire digital lives, the algorithm. The very concept of writing down a logical sequence of steps to solve a problem is eternally tied to his actual name. No way, right?
Section 5. Our digital world today. The invisible code. Literally every single time you use a computer, tap out a text or dial a phone number, you are actively benefiting from ideas brought to the world over 1,000 years ago. When we think about what runs on algorithms today, it touches absolutely everything. Modern banking relies on cryptographic algorithms to secure your money. The physics and engineering behind our skyscrapers, iterative algorithmic math. When you pull up a GPS navigation system, it is literally running a step-by-step procedure, an algorithm, to find the fastest route between millions of roads. Search engines, and even the rapidly advancing artificial intelligence on our phones are built entirely on this concept. Our entire digital infrastructure relies on this marriage of the decimal system and the algorithmic thinking that Al-Khwarizmi so clearly documented.
So, to wrap this up, his greatest achievement wasn't inventing the numbers themselves, it was recognizing their extraordinary potential, organizing them into practical steps, and dedicating his life to democratizing that knowledge. By sharing this system so openly, he established the absolute foundation of the modern mathematical world. Through his work, numbers became simpler, calculations became faster, and complex logic became accessible to anyone willing to learn. He didn't just change the way people counted, he changed the way humanity thinks about numbers forever.
So, here is a final thought for you to chew on. Next time you type on your smartphone or run a quick web search, will you remember the 9th century scholar hidden in the code? It really leaves you wondering what other ancient foundations are silently powering our modern lives today, doesn't it? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep looking for the fascinating history behind the everyday tools we just take for granted.